right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to A Nuisance Media. I'm one of your two beautiful co-hosts here in Grim,
Words, what's up?
and today on the news media, I should say, we are called A Nuisance Media, so we might as well cover the media. We're going to be talking about Warner Brothers, or I should say Warner Brothers Discovery, as the merger has been called. So, if you haven't been living under a rock when it comes to company mergers and just the movie business in general, Discovery bought out Warner Brothers because AT&T scraped it off its boot like a piece of gum. Because that's how worthless Warner Brothers has become over the years. So we thought we might as well talk about it and give our 2 cents on the, how shall we say, the potential disaster that may come out of this or the potential success that may come out of this, because, or the middling ground of it's just in purgatory for the rest of its life. Who knows? So, I think it's only right we begin with how the hell Warner Brothers got into the mess that they have right now on their hands. So, why don't we start this story back in, what was it again? Words?
2013, I believe, is when Man of Steel came out in 2013, right? 2013,
Yep.
2014. It was one of those
Yeah.
years.
2013 is when Man of Steel came out, right? We had this Superman film that kind of got mixed receptions for most people who are DC fans, and it kicked off. It was supposed to kick off the DC cinematic universe. Wow, that did not last very long now, did it? Because right after Man of Steel was the was it Batman v Superman, and yikes, that movie was not very good. Even the Ultimate Edition couldn't fix everything in that film. Then I believe what came next was Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
That train wreck of a film. God. There's Wonder Woman, who was played by Gal Gadot, that was probably their best film to date. It still is probably one of their better films 5 years later, arguably. Throw in what? Shazam, throw in what other films?
I would say Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad is probably
that's
Yeah.
But this is the problem we're getting to, is all these films that DC has done, and there's no sense of this was meant to be any sort of connected universe, connected tissue. There's like cuts, there's like, the Marvel, after credit scenes, like every once in a while to help keep it somewhat connected. But this is the problem. DC went into this with no goddamn plan, right? They went into this going, let's just make a bunch of movies and hope to God this works. Would that be that'd be fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was very clear that they had zero fucking plan, especially with just Batman versus Superman. Off the rip, like that movie just came out of fucking nowhere. Like it didn't make any logical sense to even come after Man of Steel. So they definitely did not plan anything out. And then when they realized that they fucked up, they tried to plan shit out, and that also didn't work. So yeah, it's a big fucking mess. That's the best way to put it.
Because then you had films like Joker that came out, which was a financial success and was generally, most people liked it.
But it's not even connected. It's not even connected to the main films that we even talked about so far.
Yeah. Then you had Birds of Prey, that disaster of unbelievable proportions. So, the picture we're painting you is a dysfunctional movie universe that isn't even a universe. It's just a slapdash together set of films. So, this all culminates in what happened recently, which was, this wasn't recently, this was a couple months ago, where Discovery bought out Warner Brothers, right? AT&T scraped it off their boot saying, we're done with this goddamn company, we don't want nothing to do with it, it's not doing what we thought it would do. So the new CEO is a guy by the name of David Zaslav. who runs Discovery. So he comes in and he basically says anything that does not make us money is getting canned. And so that led to a lot of stuff being canceled. That led to the CW being sold off for basically for nothing. That was the funniest thing I saw when that happened like a while back ago. That was the funniest set of news. Then recently, they shit canned. There's one that's gonna that got shit canned recently, and another one that's potentially gonna be shit canned. The first one was the Batgirl movie, which was supposed to have Michael Keaton and somebody else who was supposed to play the villain. I forget his name. He was from The Mummy.
Supposedly there was a lot of callbacks. I actually read some of the test screening leaks that came out. A lot of callbacks to Michael Keaton's Batman, and a lot of people were like, why the fuck is this even being made first over the Flash? Because Michael Keaton's not supposed to be in this universe until the Flashpoint shit happens. So there was a bunch of shit that I was reading from the test screening that the movie was literally a waste of fucking time. So it's not a shocker that they ended up saying, yeah, go fuck yourself to Batgirl, all the people that worked on that film. It sucks as a filmmaker, definitely, to see your movie just get shit canned like that, but from what I even read from leaks from the people that actually watch test screenings, it must have been that fucking horrible. That's all right. I'm gonna say.
And this is where the unfortunate kind of, how shall we say, what's the wording I'm looking for? Clashing between what business executives want who run a movie studio versus the people on the ground making the film.
Yep.
And this is the reality, is that Batgirl, from what I saw the photos of what her costume looked like, and as like I said, I didn't look too much into the test screenings, as I saw generally it was not positive, generally speaking. And here's the thing, this movie I believe had a budget of about $90 to $100 million. And this was supposed to go directly to HBO Max. I go, you're telling me Warner Brothers is going to sink $90 million to $100 million for a goddamn direct to HBO Max movie? And the problem is that it looked really cheap for $90 to $100 million. It looked pretty cheap, right? And so, just from the costume used for Batgirl. Now, I'm not going to speak too much on the actress because I don't know much about her work. I'm not going to say anything. She could be good. She could be bad. I don't know. I'm not going to comment too much on that personally.
And not just that, but we saw what the pandemic and sending shit straight to HBO Max did for Warner Brothers. It ruined Dune's box office take. It ruined, I believe, the Suicide Squad's box office take too. So it really wasn't a smart idea to just keep putting stuff out on HBO Max. I don't think that the streaming services, I don't think that they're going to be doing that from now on, obviously, because it's just a total waste of money. They're throwing so much money into making these films, and then, they're putting it on HBO Max. A lot of people get HBO Max for free through their cable company or through their phone bill or some shit like that. So they were losing so much money. So I could understand why they were like, "Hey, we're not gonna just drain $90 million and just put it on HBO Max, but it's also not good enough to put in a movie theater. So you know what? Instead of just wasting our money and putting it on HBO Max, we're just never gonna let it be out there," which was probably the better idea anyway.
Right, which is what happened not that long ago in the earnings. I think it was either earnings call or quarterly call, don't remember, where David Zaslav and his guys basically said that. They basically threw the guy who came up with that idea for Warner Brothers under the bus. They threw that idea under the bus and said, that shit don't make you money. You're going to lose a lot of money in the process. And as you said, a lot of streaming services are starting to regret that decision because they're losing money like it's nobody's business, right?
Yeah, even Disney Plus had that issue, so.
Yeah, which is why they're in talks about bundling their thing with Hulu and all this other stuff, and I think even merging was the rumor I heard in that regards. But this is so you have to look at this and we go, what's the big picture of this? What might come from this pullback? And one of the things mentioned during the call was a 10-year plan for the movies, was for Warner Brothers, for the WB films, and especially DC. Because one decision I believe I heard correctly, if I make a mistake on this, don't call me out on it. If I remember correctly, I think Warner Brothers is going to make DC its own movie studio, similar to how Marvel did it, where Marvel Studios, right? Everything was under that umbrella, which is what's probably going to happen with DC. Everything DC will be under DC Studios, which is what they should have done from the very beginning, but apparently that idea was like, didn't come to their heads. I don't know. So, but what came out of this is everything's getting cut left and right. You know, like I said, we mentioned before, the Batgirl movie got canned. That will never be released, as far as we can tell. It's probably been thrown into into the dumpster and just said, we're not touching that film ever again. Then you also have the Supergirl film that's being apparently in production. There's also talks of that one getting shit canned. And now, there is one film we haven't talked about yet that is going to be releasing
next March or April, I believe it's supposed to be releasing.
It's going to be releasing early next year, somewhat early next year, and that is the Flashpoint film. That's
It's called The Flash. I don't even think it's about Flashpoint, obviously.
Yeah, but it's basically, and so this unfortunately draws us into the conversation regarding a certain actor by the name of Ezra Miller. Look, he recently. Let me say this: they recently admitted themselves into a mental hospital or went to go get help or whatever the fucking claim was. Do I think it's real? I think it's more of a PR stunt at this point. After how long has this Ezra Miller saga been going on for?
It's been like the last year, right? Like this entire year, I've seen like just the crazy shit about Ezra Miller. You know, him kidnapping a girl or grooming girls, him stealing from people and doing all this crazy shit. Threatening police officers, resisting arrest from cops. Just a lot of really over the top shit that he slash they slash them, whatever the fuck they are, is doing.
And they also were driving around the country with a bulletproof vest, if I remember correctly.
That was something that recently came out.
So
they, I guess we have to respect the pronouns. They were riding around. I think him and fuck it, I don't even care. Him and the chick that he groomed, the girl that he groomed, that was like a Native American. She was from a Native American tribe, actually. They were driving around the country with bulletproof vests and shit. He was taking her phone and like forcing. She couldn't post certain things on her phone. She couldn't talk to certain people, even including her parents. And supposedly he met her at one of the pipeline like protests that they had like back in the day. This was before Fantastic Beasts. The first one came out. So
wow.
So she wasn't even 18 yet. So supposedly he was already talking to her and a bunch of the girls from the tribe then. So that's a little
suspicious.
That's pretty creepy, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I think that this current move, him checking into this mental hospital or whatever the fuck they did, I just saw that he was getting help for his health issues, his complex mental health issues. That's what they said. I think it's just a PR stunt from from Warner Brothers / DC saying like, hey, if you don't get your shit together, you're not getting paid for this movie, and we're not gonna release this fucking film. So you have to at least say that you're doing something about it, or we're not gonna do anything that, or you're fucked.
Right, because that was the thing I was hearing around the rumor mill is DC had a couple options. It was either to release this film with absolutely no marketing, keep it to a bare fucking minimum. There was like another option. I believe it was like throwing it straight onto HBO Max or something to that effect. I don't remember. They had two options where it was basically they were going to lose money, and the third option altogether was to can the film. Now, mind you, ladies and gentlemen, this film was what was the budget? Like 200 to 250 million dollars for production.
Yeah, they put a lot of money into this film. They had to do reshoots for this movie, so that just inflates the budget even more. So yeah, like they that would have been such a major loss of money that I don't know if they were truly gonna risk taking that. But the problem is, at the end of the day, a lot of people know that Ezra Miller is connected to this film, so I'm not exactly sure if that's gonna even slide, to be honest. So they still might lose money even with releasing this film at the end of the day.
Like I said, and that doesn't even take into account whatever kind of marketing they do put into this. So
Yeah,
this thing
that's
might
an
end up
additional
being,
part of the budget that's not even included yet.
yeah. So this might end up being a quarter of it. Like this might be ending up close to like $1 billion. Nah, I wouldn't say that far. Maybe 700 to 800 million dollars. This might end up being a lot of fucking money. Do I think this film might break even? Maybe, but I don't think it'll go past that at best. So, or for some fucking reason, maybe it makes a ton of money. Who the fuck knows? But here's the end of the point that we're trying to get to is this film is going to be the proverbial reset button for all of DC going forward. Now, there is the question of how does Black Adam fit into this, because that movie's slated to come out later this year, or is it next year? I don't remember.
I don't remember Black Adam. I know that another Shazam movie is coming out too. Like a separate Shazam movie is coming out. I know that, and Aquaman 2 also is coming out still, and they just did reshoots. They're still in the middle of doing reshoots, and massive re-editing of that film. So that film might not even come out at this point. We don't even know about Aquaman 2 because of the Amber Heard situation. So Warner Brothers and DC are in a lot of shit because of the films that are probably not even gonna lead them into the future. They're probably not even gonna use the majority of these actors. Probably the majority of these films. The majority of these films that came out already are probably just gonna be like throwaway films, probably except for Shazam and the Black Adam stuff and the Flash. But everything else, they're probably just gonna erase it and just say, hey, that's a separate universe, that doesn't count anymore.
Yeah. So, like I said, my thinking is it doesn't matter if it's an official announcement or through the Flashpoint movie. Everything, like I said, I think the current slate of films, like you mentioned, Aquaman 2, Black Adam, Shazam, I think all of them will, when the Flash movie happens, they're going to hit the reset button. Because one thing mentioned in that call, the recent earnings call, was a 10-year plan. Now, here's the thing. As we speak, Warner Brothers is looking for a Kevin Feige of their own. They did pick up a guy who used to consult with Disney by the name of Alan Horn, if I remember his name correctly, who was there during the early days, and so they brought him on to consult, or I believe is an official position. I don't remember. But they brought him in, and I guess like I said, they're trying to establish a proper cinematic universe similar to Marvel. And this is the thing that, this is where we have to ask is what might come from this whole thing? What might come from this 10-year plan, and what might come from all of this? The reality is that we don't know. It's going to take a couple of years for all these films that are currently in the pipeline to come out, and for them to just basically then say, we're done here, this is the cutoff point, and we're going to start anew, basically. However, there's also the other things we didn't mention. We also forgot to mention the Joker sequel and the Batman supposed sequel. Those are also two other things, but those we don't know. We don't know yet actually what's going to happen with those films.
It's kind of crazy because they just had, at this moment, they have multiple universes running through their supposed DC expanded universe or whatever it's called, right? The DCEU. Yeah. It's just going to be very confusing, and it's a lot of shit that Warner Brothers has to deal with right now. And the reason why we don't know how well it's going to work is, I mean, you could just look at Marvel right now. The entire Phase 4 has been pretty much throwaway films. It's been a lot of garbage. I mean, the people that watch Marvel films and love everything that's Marvel, they're loving that. But, like, people like me, I love Marvel, but I really have not enjoyed any of these films and TV shows outside of No Way Home. So how well is that even gonna translate? How well is a actual building a MCU type of universe really gonna work? It could still fail completely
Right, because the
because we're
reality is
seeing
that
it happen right now. Marvel is completely failing at doing it at this current moment.
right, because as I mentioned to you earlier in our private conversations, is word on the street is for Marvel at least is there are rumors about them restarting their own universe, but that's still much in the rumor. But that also brings us to the DC question: is the CEO David Zaslav said in the call, or if I don't know if it's him or somebody else, said this much. They said we're going to kick this off with we're going to use our characters, our the best of the best, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and all these other characters that almost have been around longer than Marvel, right? That's the thing that we have to keep in mind is that DC has been around a lot longer than Marvel,
Oh, you also have
and
to
that's the
recognize Superman and Batman were like the first two real televised in film superheroes. Superman, the original Superman, was one of the biggest superhero films up until I believe like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man film came out. So just think about that for a second too.
right. And so when you take all this into consideration, you go, well, how might a new DC universe look like, right? That has to be reset from the very beginning, right? It might kick off with another Superman movie, or it might start off with a Batman movie, or there's a litany of choices. They have a ton of choices they have that they have a ton of characters, they have a ton of options to do this, right? And so, is it probably been, has it taken them a little too long to get to this realization and realizing that doing this mixed bag of like some films are connected, some are not. Here's and all these different styles, and I go, look, you can have all these different styles, but if you're just going to be this disjointed as it is, it's not going to work out too well for you,
It also
right?
confuses audiences too. How
Right?
was like I remember when we watched Joker for the first time. How does this connect to the Ben Affleck Batman? Or is
Right.
this going to connect to the Robert Pattinson Batman? Like we were trying to figure that out, and I don't think it connects to either one of them. So that's why it's kind of
Right. And so some
it's
people
just
might
very
tell us,
confusing. It's confusing for mainly for audience members that are just watching movies to watch movies, right? Like it confuses the average film goer, and turns people off from actually wanting to watch these films and these projects.
right? Because I remember, because here's the thing: is some people might say, well, these films weren't supposed to be connected, or some other thing like that, and I go, but this is the thing: is with Marvel, it's understandable. Like you can figure out as time goes on, like from phase one to phase two, you could figure out all the connections, you could do all this stuff, and obviously like all these lead ups. And I go, you know, they had their shit together for the first like 3.5 phases. Here, DC right out the gate was just a mess. It was just a disaster from the out beginning because you had the Zack Snyder stuff, then you had then you had
We had the issue with Justice League with Joss Whedon replacing
right,
Zack Snyder.
and then you had the Zack Snyder cut. Then you had the separate Suicide Squad movie by
James
James.
Gunn.
Yeah. Then you had this just this clusterfuck is just the best word to describe it for DC. And so, you know, do we hope something positive comes out of this? We do, right? We hope something positive comes out of this plan by Warner. But the problem is that it's going to require patience and it's going to require DC to hit it right out the gate. Like this is the kind of thing is they can't afford to mess around, right? They can't afford to screw around with characters that are getting a second chance that quite frankly in a lot of people's eyes they feel like Warner Brother doesn't deserve a second chance at fixing this goddamn mess. In at least a lot of people's eyes, you know.
I agree with that too, and I love how they're going about it. How Warner Brothers Discovery is really going about this. They just said fuck this. We're tired because it is an issue that they're gonna lose money, and they keep up doing the same thing that they were doing before. So it's really a good idea for them to do what they're doing right now. You know, just trying to create less of a fucking issue, less of a mess that the previous Warner Brothers, whatever executives
Team.
pretty much
Yeah.
caused. You know, so,
Because they greenlit a whole bunch of stuff that, quite frankly, should have never been greenlit in the first place.
and they,
Right?
I mean, you could just look at Batman versus Superman. Superman dies in the movie. Why did he do that? He's only been in one other movie before this. And then they bring him back to life the next movie right after that. So it's kind of stupid when you really think about it. Like, what were they even thinking? You know?
So this does go into the question of what are our final thoughts? What do we think is going to come of this from like years down the road? And so, what do you think, Worth? What are your final thoughts on this whole situation?
So the thing is that I'm analyzing what Marvel is doing right now too, right? And I think that the biggest problem is that Marvel is failing right now too. I'm not really interested in anything that's coming from Marvel, and all these movies are planned, all these shows are planned. I'm really not interested in that, so I'm not really sure how interested I will be in Warner Brothers attempting to do this now, because the issue is that, hey, the cinematic universe thing is kind of a failure in many ways. DC just failed already. We had the Universal Monsters universe thing fail when they were trying to reboot all the classic monster movies from the 30s and turn it into a movie universe, right? That was horrible. We could look at, again, I'll even talk about Marvel. You could just look at Sony and what they're doing with their main films. They put out Morbius, and that was a horrible film. And that's a separate universe from the normal Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? I'm looking at the Ghostbusters. There was supposed to be a whole Ghostbusters Cinematic Universe. That didn't work out. So, I'm kind of worried because mainly, I don't know how well that they can even do this. But I do have to say that I have a lot of respect for David Zaslav, right? Is his name. I think that he's going to at least write the ship correct as best as he can. I'm not really sure how well they're going to come out of this, though. I still think that The Flash is probably going to be a commercial failure. I think Aquaman 2 might be a commercial failure, honestly. A lot of these movies might end up failing, even if they're trying to reset, and they won't get that second chance because they're going to go broke. Because they're not making any money back on any films. So that's my biggest worry right now, is that the current projects that they're working on that they have to finish up and say, hey, well, we have to put this out because it is what it is. You know, we already drained so much money into it. I think that might end up dragging them down so far that they can't even come back from it. That's my biggest thing about it. But I do have hope. I hope that Marvel even comes back and starts doing better films again soon. So, all I can really say is there's a very sliver of chance of hope that DC and Warner Brothers can actually bring themselves up from this debacle. But if they decide to do some dumb shit, like we heard the possibility of having a black Superman, and he's Clark Kent, the Clark Kent Superman, instead of actually using the black Supermans that we have from the comics, which I wouldn't be mad about that, right? But if they just used, if they decide, hey, we're gonna go with Michael B. Jordan as Clark Kent Superman and completely reboot Superman, I don't know how well that actually works, right? I don't know how well it's gonna work if Ben Affleck comes back to play Batman, because what's the point? We already have Robert Pattinson. I didn't really care that much for his version of Batman, but there's already a version of Batman out there that a lot of people actually enjoy. So why would we tear that down and have 3 other Batmans in it? Why are we trying to get Henry Cavill to come back? So there's so much shit like that. Just makes me think like, hey, as long as they don't fuck up and they try their best to, create something that's super, planned out and is not complete garbage, there might be a chance that they can actually fix this issue, but right now I have very little hope, to be honest with you.
Right, and those are all valid concerns, right? Because, Marvel in its early days, they did well with the whole cinematic thing because they planned good stories, they wrote their characters well, and they kept it simple, I guess is the best word to say it, right? And so, like, for me personally, and my final thoughts on this whole matter is this much. I feel like, do I think it took a little too long for Warner Brother to hit the reset button? Yes, and now they're paying for the consequences of taking too long to hit the reset button, right? They have numerous films in the middle of production that are close to the end of at the very end of their production, and they're just about to release in a couple of months within the next year or so, right? And so this 10-year plan, for me, I heard it, I went, there's hope there, but at the same time, I also go, well, how long is it going to take before we see any genuine results, right? And I also understand the concerns about starting up a whole brand new cinematic universe. As a whole, right, these things, they require a lot of planning, and they require everyone to be on the same page. So it's not, it takes a lot of effort, you know? And so I'm a bit more hopeful than words here on whether or not Warner Brothers can come back from this, because I feel like they have somebody who simply is going to go, we need to get this, we need to right the ship, and we need to do it now, and is going to try their best to get the ship where it needs to be going, and so everything we've seen canceled. I know there's some people that have been upset about the Batgirl film being canceled. I also tell them, I also go, I don't care, right? I also, this was going to be an HBO Max exclusive film. It also made me go, how the hell is that going to make you much money in return? I also go, Aquaman. Look, honest to God, I'll say this much: I never liked the first Aquaman. I don't know why. I don't know. I never really.
I didn't like it either, actually.
It didn't speak to me personally. I liked the first Wonder Woman. Never saw 1984 because that shit looked uninteresting to me. It looks not very good to me, right? And then you had Shazam. I was never the biggest Shazam fan in the world, so I kind of went about it. Black Adam, I don't know. But but like I said, I'll leave it with this much. I have hope for the future, but I'm going to be very, very cautious about what Warner Brothers does in the future, because they already burnt that bridge. But the thing is, can they repair that bridge? And only time is really going to tell if they can repair that bridge. And quite frankly, we still have another maybe year and a half of films that we have to go through before we can get to anything reset. Like, word on the street is they're still trying to get Henry Cavill back as Superman. I didn't mind his performance, but they're trying to get him back. I think there's two different rumors. There's one saying he flat out does not want to come back, and the other rumor is he's waiting to see who's basically going to be the head of that DC Studios. Right? Those are the two rumors. There could be, like I said, it could be either one. It could be both. I don't really care. Right? And at the end of the day, I don't expect anything. I don't expect to hear any news of this till, like, what? 2024, 2025 minimum? Bare minimum? It might be longer than that.
Yeah.
So, those are our thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, on the whole situation with Warner Brothers and whether or not this can be turned around, right? So, thank you guys for listening for, what was this, 20-something minutes, could be longer. We've been rambling on like idiots, like floating heads in an abyss.
It's been about 36 minutes, actually.
Damn.
Yeah, that's a lot of time.
Yeah. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for those of you who stuck around to the end of the video. We hope you enjoyed it. Leave the video a like, leave a comment, leave your thoughts on the situation. What do you think is going to happen as a result of this whole reset button being hit? Do you think it'll go well? Do you think it'll go poorly? Or do you kind of think in the middle where, not much of will come from this, right? It's just big studio talk, because studio executives love to talk. Sometimes it comes to fruition. Sometimes it's just a horrendous mess. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, This has been Talking Skulls on A Nuisance Media, and we'll see you guys next time.
Peace out, guys.